Okay, guys, we are back today with the Coach Track podcast. And today, joining me and Dan Williams is the amazing Katie Dean. Katie, thank you so much for joining us. And I'd love to know a little bit more about your journey into coaching and what sort of coaching you actually do.
Hi, Greg, Dan, thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to be here. Yes, also quite surprising to be here. My journey into coaching was somewhat unexpected. I graduated from Cambridge University with a PhD in history all the way back in the year 2000, went into management consultancy, discovered that was a pretty stressful job, and within 2 years, I'd actually burned out and I literally collapsed on my way into work one day. Took 6 months and I ended up being diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome. And the doctors told me that they didn't really understand the illness. They didn't have any kind of cure or any reliable treatment. So this was probably it for the rest of my life. I mean, I was in my mid late 20s at that point, and I was just like, wow, no. So I basically spent the next 20 years, as it turned out, just trying to figure out how to recover. And conventional medicine didn't have any answers. I learned a little about functional medicine and went into working with a nutritionist. So, getting my physical body back in balance through nutrition, through yoga. That got me a long way, but I still felt like there's more. I was like, I'm sure I can fully heal from this. And then began very reluctantly investigating the sort of mind body connection, which is where the nervous system comes into play. And that opened up a whole new field of recognizing I actually had quite a lot of developmental trauma going on, even though I apparently hadn't, I didn't have a terrible childhood or anything. I had a wonderful, loving parents and, lots of privilege in my childhood, but just certain ways we develop. Bullying at school was one thing for me that had led into this trauma piece, which meant that even though my physical body was in better shape, my nervous system was still signaling to cells that no, 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 we're in danger here. So things weren't functioning properly. So I did a lot of more psychology based work around that. Again, moved a little bit further forwards. And by this time, I was probably sort of 90% of a normal human being. But I was like, no, I'm sure there's more. And then various pathways took me into energy healing, which is getting more into the spiritual realm. But actually, I was looking at it a lot more from a sort of quantum physics perspective and understanding. So, in spiritual terms, you'd be talking about an aura. Quantum physics, you're talking more about the biofield, or perhaps I should even say quantum biology. So it was working with the energy systems in that and understanding that that's like more information that our cells are reading and responding to. And when I began to iron out the glitches in that, that's when I experienced full recovery. So now for about 3 years, I've been back to living a normal, healthy life. I mean, I still look after my body because I've carried forward all the lessons that I learned. But it's frustrating. I mean, just before we started recording, Greg, you were saying, I think you said about 24 million was a number you've heard of people worldwide with chronic fatigue syndrome, which I can well believe that is huge. And it frustrates me that so many people are still living with this narrative of we don't understand the illness and there's nothing to be done. So that's your life gone up in smoke. And so I just wanted to help those people. And that's what led me to where I am today, sharing the knowledge and experience that I've gained to hopefully lift a few others back to a space of joy and energy and vitality instead of where they're sat right now.
Absolutely. Such an amazingly powerful story. And like I said, I saw that statistic in the week 24 million people worldwide struggling with chronic fatigue. It's a large base of people, isn't it, Dan, to reach out to, an incredible amount of people that have got similarities there. And I also saw a real interesting article about how many people are still struggling with long COVID. Is that a similar sort of thing, where people obviously, we talked about learned helplessness, didn't we? Where stuff that's happened to you in the past can come and affect you in the now, as you talked about how you were, and your childhood, etc. Let's talk a little bit more about that. Do you think more and more people are coming forward with this? Do you think more and more people are recognizing symptoms? Is there a lot moving forward in this space, would you say?
Yeah, love that. Beautiful question. And there's a couple of pieces in there. So the long COVID piece, for one, this is my personal perspective here. So I know not everyone agrees with this, but there has historically been a lot of correlation between chronic fatigue syndrome, or ME, as it's also known, and virus. So, like a virus triggering it. That seemed to be the case for me. But the research has always been trying to look to, identify the one virus, and it seems that it's a range of things. So I would say that what is happening is you've got a physiology and a psychology that's already sort of struggling on some level that you're not aware of. This virus, whatever it might be, will come in, and it's just, the straw that breaks the camel's back, so to speak. So I think COVID, we had this incredible situation where suddenly you've got a brand new virus or viral strain that's hitting the entire world all at once. So it was like this ginormous experiment. And that's not to take away from the absolute tragedy that people have experienced on all sorts of different levels. But whereas in the existing cohort of chronic fatigue, you've got, lots of different viruses that are already playing in, and they're already in the atmosphere, and some people are affected and some people are not. With COVID, you suddenly saw, like, quote unquote, everyone being hit. And then there will be this percentage that have the physiology that just struggle to fully recover from that. So I've always felt that, like, long COVID is essentially the same as chronic fatigue syndrome, but there was a lot of argument around, oh no, it's not. It's its own thing. It's a specific illness. It needs researching and dealing with. And it's amazing that actually it caught the attention and had research, and people are really trying to get on top of it. That also created a lot of friction within the chronic fatigue ME community, because we were all sitting there going, but what you're describing in long COVID is exactly what we've all been experiencing for however many decades. Why are you suddenly waking up to this? So I hope that sort of helps in some way pattern if there's been something misunderstood going on. COVID has come in to sort of shine a new perspective on it. And hopefully that's going to open the field to more awareness, more understanding. In terms of the learned helplessness piece, that's we get onto such tricky ground there, because I know for myself, because there was such a lack of acceptance of chronic fatigue in ME, there'd been a lot of history. So in the 1980s, it was called yuppie flu, and it got this idea that somehow people experiencing the illness were sort of doing it deliberately, or they were hypochondriacs, or they were being lazy. And that is absolutely not the case when you're living that experience. It's the most frustrating thing. So when someone comes in and starts talking about learned helplessness or body mind connection or anything to do with it being in the mind, that's straight into that trigger of the quite toxic things that have been suggested about you being a hypochondriac and making things up. And it tends to bypass and miss the mark that, yes, because we have this nervous system that's sensing not only the physiology, but also emotions and fears and belief systems, that actually is triggering the changes in the physical cells. So it is physical, and there is a more mind-based component which can have origins that go way back into childhood. In the first 7 years of life, we're unconsciously taking on patterns and beliefs about ourselves, and they can plug into creating a nervous system that's naturally more elevated or less elevated, therefore is more likely to struggle to give the physiological body the cellular support it needs to recover when it's hit by certain kinds of virus.
Wow.
So we hope that's helpful.
Incredibly powerful. No, that's amazing. That's amazing. That's amazingly helpful. Just before I pass you on to Dan, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what stopped the scroll for me when I looked at your LinkedIn profile. It was these amazing pictures, okay? These real colorful patterns, these shapes, symmetry, whatever it might be. Remember, we talked a little bit before we come on, didn't we, about people vibrating at different levels. And I said, Dan might not quite understand that, but for me, it was like, wow, what's that? I need to know more about that. As you can see, the pictures on the back there. Dan, how would you go about marketing that to 24 million? Would you use something like those colors and those patterns and those pictures that are in the background to stop the scroll? Or would you try something a little bit different? And just before I pass you on Katie's website. She's got an amazing video. It's a 6-minute video. It's fantastic. Right at the end of it, it's this piece of all these patterns. And for me, I was like, wow, I need to know more about that. So does that lean more into this, Dan? Is using stuff like that to stop the scroll, or would you go more into hooks and more about people's problems with this sort of stuff?
Yeah, I think I'm going to disagree with the images actually. I think they are really cool images, obviously, but that's going to limit you to people who actually already believe in the vibrational energy healing and that kind of thing. What I would do is focus more on the result that it's going to get or the transformation, because once you do that, it's kind of undeniable that it does work. So people are going to be much more open to trying it rather than kind of skipping past because they think, oh no, this isn't for me. I don't believe in this. But once they see the transformation, they are going to believe in it. And that's kind of what you got to do, because otherwise you're going to be limiting yourself to, 1% of the 24 million, which is still quite a lot. But how many of them are going to actually see you? I'm not sure. How many of them are going to be already working with people doing that kind of similar stuff? Probably quite a lot. So you kind of want to open yourself up to the other 99% of those 24 million. And that's obviously going to bring you probably a lot more results, and it's going to help people who wouldn't otherwise have been helped. That's my perspective.
Yeah, thank you. Love that. And yes, 100%. We logic things afterwards, but we do buy on the emotion of the result that we're expecting when we're making a purchase. The interesting struggle that I've had, I'll throw this out to you, Dan, to see how you would play with this one, because I'm not sure myself. So when I first got ill, I had a whole bunch of people telling me that I was making it up and there was nothing wrong with me from outside the ME community. I had the chronic fatigue ME community welcoming me in and going, yes, we're sorry you're experiencing it. It's hell, isn't it? Now I've recovered. I've got a whole bunch of people in the chronic fatigue ME community literally telling me, no, I haven't really recovered. I've just got a temporary uplift and I'm going to crash and get sick again. How do you work with the people that are really, I mean, actually understandably skeptical at the possibility of recovery? I mean, I'm feeling like nobody believes me in any state. What do I do?
Yeah. I think if people see you recover and they see the physical, tangible results of that recovery, and they still say no, it's wrong, I don't think those are people that you want to work with anyway. And I think that should be a minority of people in theory, and hopefully, well, there will be a lot more people who do see the transformation and think that's a transformation. I also want to do that myself. So I think you can't help people who don't want to be helped,
No,
in my
agreed.
opinion. What I think would be really helpful is using the content to obviously show your transformation, and then using a lead magnet to actually funnel them a little bit further into becoming clients, if that makes sense. So you could do something like a micro exercise, like a 3-minute geometry and color visualization for client sessions, something like that. I don't know. But that's like an immediate win that you can use to build trust and curiosity. And if it works, people are going to want more. So I think that would be a big helpful thing for you, just to go that little bit further than showing your transformation is proving it works for them as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Lovely. Yeah. So I have to date been focusing on sharing, because Greg, you mentioned earlier, looking on my website, the video that just shows the images. But I create those now as specific sort of visual meditations that are I actually got them tested on water crystals. So you can take water before it's watched one of these meditations. The crystals are very disorganized. After it's sat, I mean, they literally sat a glass of water in front of the screen to watch meditation as we would. And the crystals formed into these beautiful geometric shapes, which this is fringe cutting edge science, but it is structured water, which is more supportive to human health. Excuse me. It's what should be naturally occurring in our body, in our environment. So you're getting that response. Some people, as you obviously had that experience, Greg, of feeling a shift just from watching that. Other people are just like, yeah, that was very pretty, but I didn't notice anything. So I guess that's the divide between the ones who are like, okay, I'm curious to work with this, and the ones who are like, thank you very much, but this is not for me.
I actually think those videos are really good. They're kind of like visual evidence of the thing because they're obviously doing something positive. So that kind of links in with showing a transformation. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to just be all about you. It can be that kind of thing as well.
Okay.
which is perfect.
Yeah. Well, that's the $1 million question that I'm still working on because I'm early stages in this new career for me. So far, it has more been putting things out there and seeing what resonates. The kind of people that have come my direction so far are those that have already got some degree of openness to the idea of spiritual ideas or energy healing. People who are curious, really, and again, resilience and a willingness to take self responsibility are also very, very key. Because one of my coaching sessions, I do a mix of things. I have a group setting where we just meet once every 4 weeks on a Zoom call. We talk about an aspect that is really helpful in healing from chronic fatigue. I share one of the color meditations, and that's given out for people to watch daily. And actually, I'm getting some lovely feedback from that in terms of people reporting much improved sleep, feeling calmer, just noticing that their responses and reactions to life in general and to challenges of, coming down. In other words, the nervous system is all calming down. And that in one person is looks like it may be beginning to feed into actually measurable physiological changes. I mean, it's early days yet. So I've got that. I'm also just sort of starting up on one-on-one, and a one-on-one coaching session would look like a normal, what many people expect from coaching in terms of having a conversation with me and sharing the issues that they are experiencing. Then also, I will create a personalized meditation that is designed to speak to their specific aura nervous system. It's doing both for them to use, in between the first session and the next session, which typically is 3 to 4 weeks. And all the while, that's just subtly shifting things. So, yeah, occasionally some people do experience a wham, bam, massive change. But on the whole, it's much more of a subtle, just kind of being aware and noticing, as I say, things like you're feeling calmer, your sleep is gradually improving. I've been working with somebody who's actually not so much dealing with fatigue, but more weight, stubborn weight that won't shift. And she was just kind of curious, well, could this work for that? So I was like, well, let's give it a go and see what happens. And that's been a really interesting journey. There was one point where she excitedly messaged me and said, I've just lost 3 kilos, which was like, wow, that's incredible. Am I saying that this meditation magically did that? I think it's supporting things subtly. I mean, because she is also following a diet and a lifestyle that is conducive to losing weight. It's just that this wasn't happening, and perhaps this is shifting something that was a subtle block holding her back. So I'm sort of sharing those experiences and seeing, well, if you're watching, listening to this, and that invokes curiosity and resonates with you, then let's have a chat and see where we go.
I would definitely take advantage of the fact that the internet exists so that you can kind of reach anyone you want to reach, and definitely don't limit yourself to the UK or like local people, because obviously that's a lot less people and a percentage of those won't even be interested anyway, if that makes sense. So definitely open yourself up. I wouldn't target a specific place. I would just go everywhere. For anyone who wants to get this result anywhere, wherever you are, we can hop on a Zoom call and we can do that kind of thing. So I think what also will really help is using your backstory. So obviously Cambridge is a very well-known university and you can't really argue with a PhD from Cambridge. So definitely use that a lot more. I would talk about that. I would talk about your experience yourself. So your illness and the discovery and how you came to create the new system and what it does. Because that's obviously going to create credibility and reliability wherever you are in the world. So yeah, that's what I do.
In terms of actual specific channels, I find myself quite drawn to YouTube because I quite enjoy actually putting together a longer form video where I can really properly share my story. Instagram springs to mind because it's a very visual channel. So obviously for the color, as Greg said, actually seeing some of the images, stop the scroll there. What are your thoughts on that, Dan?
I think using the visual platforms is really good as long as you're using them for the right things. So you could use them for sharing your story and sharing a transformation that the vibrations have actually created. What I wouldn't use it for is sharing kind of the process itself. So I would share the result before that.
Okay.
I would leave the process to your website. So if people are trusting you enough already and wanting the result enough to click on your website, that's when you can tell them the specifics of how it works. But before
Okay.
that, I wouldn't like kind of scare the people off who might not kind of believe in that yet
Yeah.
with the content itself. So it's just using it for the right things.
Yeah. Lovely. That makes sense. Thank you. Yes. I'll let Dan go first because if you've got questions, I can share information that helps you focus. That would be lovely.
Well, what platforms are you focusing on at the moment? Are you focused on any platforms or what kind of talk me through that?
Yeah, so very little at the moment. I mean, I started up a YouTube channel and I've been pitifully inconsistent in creating content for it. You know, I'll get sort of enthused and create some stuff and put it up there and then do nothing for a month. And, as other things take hold. Interestingly, actually, this would be a good question for you. Prior to this, so during my illness, I was running my own business as a bead creator. So I was designer, artist, teacher, and I had a very large worldwide following from that. So I've already got a significant sort of Facebook following and Instagram following, but they're all expecting beadwork content, not how to recover from chronic fatigue content. Is it a good idea to sort of just shift that channel's content, or is it a better idea to start up something brand new?
That's a really good question. I think you've got to ask yourself whether they followed you for the bead work or they followed you for you. Because if they followed you for you and your personal brand, which is what obviously me and Greg try and make sure happens, you can pivot as much as you want. Well, not as much as you want,
Mhm.
but you can pivot
Yeah.
and they're going to kind of pivot with you because they're invested in you rather than what you're talking about at that point, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yes, that does.
I wouldn't be scared of pivoting. I would definitely try it out.
Mhm.
And realistically, you're not going to get worse results by pivoting from what you've already got than you would from starting a brand new account from zero.
Yeah.
So I think there's not really any downside to that. So I would definitely do that. Yeah. And also, there's not really any reason to limit yourself to one platform or two platforms. You could post the same thing as Greg said on different platforms because I know that you don't want to invest that much time in content and stuff. It's not what most coaches are interested in. They just want to
Mm.
get the clients and help people. So definitely repurposing that content is going to save you some time, limit that stress as well, and get you potentially more clients. So it's kind of an efficiency thing as well as getting
Mhm.
more clients.
Yeah. So in this wonderful age of AI and tech and everything, are there things that you can recommend to make the repurposing process like automatic and super simple and easy?
Yes. So, well, we use Opus Clips for our podcasts. So that obviously automatically turns a 30-minute podcast into like 25 TikToks, Reels, all that things,
Okay.
the short form clips, so that we can use those on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Twitter, even. And obviously, that does it instantly. So it's a half an hour podcast, and we're getting a YouTube video, a lot of Instagram posts, a lot of LinkedIn posts, and a lot of also ideas for things in the future. So if you've
Okay.
asked an interesting question, we can obviously answer that in more detail in future content and stuff like that. So Opus Clips is definitely our main AI tool that we use for efficiency.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. So, two websites actually. If you're specifically interested in the color stuff, then colorlandsystem.com. And that is KOLORLAN system, all one word. If you're more interested in finding your energy, then very easy, find my energy, all one word, .co.uk. That also will take you through to the Colourland system if you didn't pick up on that. So thank you. Thanks for